4th, 2025. Please stand to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Mr. Allen, would you please review the agenda for today with us?
Good morning. So the main item on the agenda is the certification of the results, which will include, I will give you a suggested amendment on petitions to accumulate write-in votes, which were only received after this agenda was drawn up, but nonetheless need to be part of the certification. I'll give as brief as I can an election report, but there's a lot of good news to report out of this election. We'll have public comment, then the certification vote, solicitor's report as needed, brief discussion of preparations for the municipal election in November, and approval of minutes from last year.
All right, thank you. All right, is there any, you have it listed as you going first, but usually we do public comment first. Which
We can go with public comment first.
is there any public comment today? Ms. Coker.
Good morning, Karis Coker, Concord Township. You may be aware of it at this point, but I just want to bring to your attention that there were several legal notices that are required by the schedule put out by the Department of State that were not published pertaining to the times of the return board meeting and other events in this election. Those were missing. I want to address matters of the return board. Pennsylvania law stipulates that upon completion of the computation and canvassing, the board shall tabulate the figures for the entire county and sign, announce, and attest the same. And it says that this is to be announced and attested by the clerks who made and computed the entries respectively.
May I address that? Because that's been an ongoing issue.
Yes,
and
it is.
I'd like to, and I have the law here, and you've brought this up every election over the
Yes.
course of several elections. That section, if you accurately quote it, opens with the county board, who are the members here before you, not the return board. There are separate segments later that deal with the return board. And the clerks that it refers to are the chief clerk of the Bureau of Elections, Lorraine.
The persons who
Hold on,
computed
let me- right.
And your time.
Let me, allow me to finish. If we haven't.
We have already paused. He paused immediately.
The chief clerk of the Bureau of Elections, Lorraine Hagan, chief clerk of voter registration, Crystal Winterbottom, the chief custodian, who is actually manager supervisor of the warehouse, Jackie Dunn, myself, the election director. Those are the individuals and this return. That's what we're here to do today. And that's what we are about to do today. Now, later on, there's also a reference to the return board possibly creating a report in the discretion of the return board. I'm going to repeat that. In the discretion of the return board, the exclusion of the poll of that district, either to all offices, candidates, or parties, or as to a particular, if they find, and it's specifically higher up in that law, states that they have to find some kind of fraud or gross mistake. A report of the facts of the case to the district attorney where such action appears to be warranted. I'm going to repeat that, where such action appears to be warranted. We're going to hear from members of the return board who are going to talk about what they saw, what they went through. But I just want to make sure we're on the same footing and we're actually quoting the law completely. So it opens with the county board, who are the members before you here today, and that's the action that we're about to take here. And in fact, the certification report provided by the state, which is what they're going to sign, has blanks on it for the chief clerks for the first signing, which we've already conducted. And Jackie has already signed, Lorraine has already signed, So I've already signed, Crystal's already signed. So that's what that's referring to. You seem to bring that up every certification meeting, and I just want the record to reflect the full law.
All right, I do disagree with your interpretation of that law.
Okay.
It will be interesting to see what the Department of State or the Secretary of State in earlier years understood that to be applied. And also the
I
discretion.
can address that, actually. There was never a
Well,
return.
Sean, I want to make sure she has the maximum time of. Yeah, you did pause it again. So just, Ms. Coker, just so you know, if we interrupt you and ask questions, we will be pausing
Okay,
your
thank
time clock. Thank you, Mr. Parks.
I've been involved in elections in this county dating back to at least 2006 and actually 2001 or 2002 as a candidate. And there was never, to my knowledge, in any of that period of time until 2020, a report from the return board. Now, there are people in this room who were involved in the return board during that period, and they may recall whether that's correct. But best of my knowledge, there was no report from any return board in a written form during that period of time until 2020, when the return board took it upon itself to prepare a written report, not because it was required by law, but I think because of the circumstance of that election and some of the discussions in the air at that time. I think the return board, my impression is the return board thought it would be advisable to prepare a report in that particular instance. So that stands as the one written report of the return board of which I am aware. And at no point during any of that time, to my knowledge, has the Department of State ever said, where's your written report from the return board? And any of that, that's over, 20, 25 years. So
I would like to know prior to 2000 what was happening, but also the section 4.
okay.
Prior to 2000. Section 1404 says that as the returns are read and they're to be recorded on the blanks prepared for the purpose, and it says that these are to be publicly, which it is referencing over on, referencing as the numbers are tabulated at the return board, it's to be noted publicly, so announced so that individuals know which precinct is being, which there was a difference this time, but you still can't hear the numbers. The watchers and observers by law are to be able to write down their own do their own computations based on the numbers that are read aloud by the persons who are doing the reports. And that is not possible under the present circumstance. There was a lot of distancing imposed for COVID-19. There's no more COVID. It is impossible to meaningfully observe what's going on at the tables. Then there is the matter of, the distancing, and let me find you what I wrote.
Sean, Mr. Rush, would you pause for a second? I just want to ask you, I was under the impression from discussions I've had with Mr. Allen that our group, there was an incredible accommodation of the observers of the return board beyond what is legally required in terms of both allowing the number of people and allowing questions to be asked and interactions along the way so that everybody could understand what was happening. I have specifically heard about some comments and questions that Ms. Schwartz, for example, had when she was there, and have no reason not to believe that we were not incredibly accommodating. So I'm a little disappointed in those comments because they belie what I understood happened in that long and difficult process that our return board goes through, to serve our county. So I just wanted to note that is what you're saying right now is counter to what I understand to have been the case.
All right. I'll use my time to describe this. When I first began to observe, the tables were aligned on either side of the wall, and observers could walk in front of each table and take note, and it was more easier to observe at that time, but you still couldn't see what the other side was of what was going on. However, Mr. Allen moved things into the middle. At first, you were allowed to walk down either side. Now there's just one side, and you're like 10 feet, 12 feet away from some of the things that are going on. You cannot see what is actually transpiring. And this is not to accuse anyone that's serving on the return board. They have a difficult job, but there are still many issues of concern that I hope this board, I wish you would address. Thank you.
All right, seeing no other public comment, Mr. Allen, would you please provide your Director of Elections report?
So at this time, I would like to bring up two members of the return board who were among the 18 people who served on the return board, James Ziegelhofer and Regina Shearer, both worked at first the warehouse and then later at the Union Power Plant. And the first part of the process was going through all of the materials that the poll workers returned to see if everything in terms of the ballots supplied versus the ballots used reconciled. And the second stage was at the Union Power Plant, where they actually conducted a hand recount of 17 randomly selected precincts. So I was hoping you could both approach the podium at this time.
Please both come up. We want to thank you both for your service. Hear from you.
James Ziegelhofer, Media, PA.
Regina Shearer, Springfield, PA.
Thank you both. It's my understanding both of you have served a number of years with the return board. Could you reflect on that?
I started, I guess it was in 2017.
Okay.
And I, except for one primary election, I've served every election. I would say since 2020, when we switched to paper ballots and the Hart Verity system, that each return board has gotten so much better. The precincts, the election board members are filling out the return sheet completely. The numbers are accurate. They are supplying the needed tapes and also the list of number of voters. I would say, I keep saying it, and it keeps getting better, that this election was beyond a doubt the easiest to get through, because we didn't have a lot of, what we needed was there. We checked it. And if anything, if there were any disparities, it might have been one off. So, it is just amazing that, and I keep saying it, and hopefully that number of one off will go down.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Thank you.
And Regina?
That's wonderful to hear, and it's a tribute to the hard work of our team that makes everything tighter. But we also appreciate your observation, and I hope that until everything is perfect, and let's not let perfect be the enemy of good, you will continue to serve and come in and say that every time, because
Yeah.
that's
and,
great.
it is a team effort. I know Pam, the election day guide, any changes that are made are kept up to date. And the training classes, the open houses that are held here, that people, not only the election board members, but the public can come to and actually have hands-on. And then again, the introduction of the poll pads, that brought another new concept. So all in all, I really do think that each election is getting better.
I don't mean to cut you off, but I do believe in bipartisanship, and I want to hear from Regina.
Yeah,
Regina, could you introduce yourself?
yes, Regina Shearer from Springfield. And like Ziggy, I've been a member of the return board for many years, also a judge of elections. So Ziggy and I are seeing it from both sides. And I want to give credit to the Bureau of Elections, the trainers, the warehouse, for everything they do for us. And like Ziggy said, every time the return board has gotten better each time because the judges are getting the hang of it. There's still some little tweaks that need to be done, but really for the most part, and as far as the tabulation goes, the return board, it has absolutely gotten better every single time. And I know there's sometimes a question with the scanners, but there does not seem to be a problem at all with the scanners. And we've adjusted and adapted to the poll pads, the voters and we have. So I think things are going very well. And I thank Jim for all his guidance, for us with at the return board.
That's wonderful to hear. Thank you.
I'm going to ask you a few questions just to verify what you did under the law. You assembled starting April 23rd, the third day after the primary, correct?
I'm sorry, just for the record.
Yeah.
The Friday?
The Friday after
Yeah.
election day.
Yes.
What was the election? It was May.
Yeah, May 20th.
Oh, I said April.
Yes.
I'm going
Really listening to
too
your
far back. Sorry, thank you.
Exact. This is,
Okay, let me correct that. You assembled on May 23rd, 3 days after that. I should have just stuck to the script here, 3 days.
Yes.
You then compared the number of ballots supplied to each precinct to what was reported on the return sheet from each precinct. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
And it was correct every time.
You compared the number of ballots supplied to the number of ballots that the voters used, including any spoiled ballots. Is that correct?
That's
Yes.
correct.
And now the county ordered ballots sufficient for approximately 50% turnout in every precinct. Did all the precincts you reviewed have unused ballots?
Yes.
Yeah,
So there's no question in your mind that there weren't more ballots cast than voters in any instance?
Correct.
Were you able to reconcile the number of ballots supplied, the number of ballots used, meaning the ballots cast, and the unused ballots that were returned?
Yes.
yes.
Did you find any discrepancies that suggested significant errors or fraud,
No,
any fraud at all?
no,
Did the members of the return board have any unanimous observations about the overall performance? Well, I think you've already answered this, but, would you say that the sentiments that you just described were pretty much unanimous?
Yeah, yeah, yes,
of
they were.
course.
Did you complete a 2% statistical and recount of ballots from randomly selected precincts?
Yes.
Did the hand counts verify the scanner counts in all the contests?
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you or other members of the return board have the opportunity to suggest possible improvements to the paperwork to help poll workers even more moving forward?
Yes. We do
And-
have the opportunity.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
And based on all that you observed, what is your recommendation on whether this Delaware County Board of Elections should certify the results of the May 2025 primary?
I suggested the May 2025 primary election be
Be
certified.
certified. Yes.
Thank you again.
Okay.
Thank you again for your last minute coming here, Regina, because the member who was originally supposed to be here broke a bone
Oh, no.
Oh,
recently.
gee.
Yes, so was unable to attend. So
Wow.
thank you for the last minute.
Yeah, I want to echo that. We really appreciate you coming here. Your recommendation is incredibly important to us as part of this process. So having both of you in a bipartisan way come and appear before us and make the recommendation to certify is certainly something I take very seriously, and I appreciate you appearing to do so.
Okay. Thank you.
I would add that Delaware County is the only county of the 67 that has this extraordinary method of having 18 or 16, depending on who we can gather, of outsiders perform this. In all other 66 counties in Pennsylvania, this is done entirely by the staff. So I think that helps in terms of getting feedback from people who see what the poll workers might have gotten wrong or what might make their work easier. So it's something that I can't take credit for. I inherited, but I appreciate that you're involved in serving in that capacity.
And in fact, we've instituted many of their recommendations over the past. So you paused on were you given the opportunity? Did you not have did you have anything that you added to the?
They did.
Okay, all right. You did talk to Pam. Okay, good, because I mean, I remember some of the recommendations specifically talking about the carbon papers and the way it was covered and the lists and the numbers and, the way it was bound, the voter lists, other things like that. So we do take it very seriously. So appreciate also your recommendations. And I know you've sat down. I don't think anybody needs to get up, but did either of you have any questions that you want to ask the return board?
No, I did not.
No?
I just wanted to follow up on your comment about fine tuning, which you just did, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's been great. And there's always, I do, early in my career, I was in a situation where the philosophy of a company was Kaizen, constant improvement. And I think that that's our philosophy too. So thank you again. Mr. Allen.
We really had a successful election on every front. We've been working to improve all of these key items since 2021. And for the last several elections, it's just getting better and better and better as we go along. You know, when I arrived here, I think the valid criticisms were in a couple of areas. Were we getting election results reported as quickly as we should or could? And I don't believe the answer was yes. Were we doing as good a job for the poll workers in terms of the training materials and having a sensible progression of setting up the election all the way to closing? And I would say, no, we didn't, but we do now. Did we have a smooth operation in terms of the drop-offs on election night? No, but we do now. So the testing of the ballots and the operation of the equipment, the responses of the warehouse team and the rovers on election day, the responses from voter registration and the Bureau and the solicitors that we had fielding calls, the Bureau of Elections and Media responding to calls about the poll pads and other processes. It's all coming together very well, to the point that we had, I'm going to read some remarks from the poll workers, who I think are our ambassadors out there. But, you know, we had election results for everything that we could count on election day was counted and was reported publicly by 11:30 p.m., all 428 precincts. That's a new record. It's going to be hard to match until we bring the wharf operations to the government center, but we're going to keep trying. So I just want to read some of these remarks because I think these are the tale of the tape. Pamela Polk of Lansdowne 5, an elected Joe, wrote to us, "Thank you for making Election Day go so much smoother each year. The instructions for opening and closing the polls are clear and concise. The return sheets are a breath of fresh air, and drop-off in media leaves me speechless." Maura Rogers, Haverford, an elected Joe, "Every time drop-off gets faster and faster and the closing instructions get better and better." Mark Poulos of Radnor 4-2, a Joe, "Kudos to the workers at the courthouse on Tuesday night. I don't think I ever broke stride once in the building and was pulling out of the parking garage right at 9 p.m. Well done." Lee Rowe from Lower Chi, who is a retired surgeon and who volunteered to serve down in Lower Chi. "It was an educating and rewarding opportunity to meet people from a different part of the county. I came away from it with a greater understanding and respect for the privilege of voting. The voter registration staff helped me over the phone to adjudicate situations where voters who thought they were registered were in fact not. I was able to point them in the right direction so that they would be able to vote in the general election in November." Jessica Poe in Lansdowne, a clerk. "I went in so nervous because of my chaotic experience in the fall," meaning the turnout, "but left feeling like I understood a lot more and saw where I can learn and grow and what I want to focus on practicing at the next open house," meaning the event that we hold here with the equipment. And Ziggy referenced the open house is where we have the equipment here, and it's not a class. It's kind of a hands-on system where they can go from station to station, talk with our warehouse staff and see how the equipment is set up properly, how to tear it down, the little methods that are the best in terms of getting everything set up and torn down at the end of Election Day. Matt Brookman, I hope I'm not butchering his name, in Radnor, Thanks for continually refining the processes each election. This year, we had everything packed in 35 minutes because of the instructions being clearer and clearer each time. David D., an experienced poll worker, but for serving for the first time in Rose Valley. The whole crew and media should be congratulated for managing such a cheerfully efficient return process. This was my first time working as a Joe and returning the ballot bag, so I didn't know what to expect with the process. I was so impressed. You should all take a bow. Matthew Stone, Brookhaven, who describes himself as an elected Joe and a lawyer that usually gives good critical feedback. And he wrote, I gave it a week and I've really been racking my brain, but I can't come up with anything critical to say. Everything went smoothly and drop off was, in a word, fantastic. And he wrote fantastic in all caps. And I just want to tell Mr. Stone, if you do come up with something critical, please feel free to share it. We will work to address it. And this isn't really, this last remark has to do with a little disappointment on our staff. We throw these events hoping that you're going to have all of the invited attendees, our voters, show up. But, you know, when we have under 20% turnout, it's a little disappointing. And this story came from a poll worker. And why she started working as a poll worker. When my daughter was in kindergarten 25 years ago, she had a friend whose parents fled China, specifically Tiananmen Square. I asked the mom what was her favorite thing about living in America. She replied, "Here you can vote." I was floored, and I started helping out at the polls in the very next election. So, anyway, it was a great election. I just wish we had more voters turning out. And I appreciate the feedback we had from all of you. I appreciate all of you going to various locations, including the Union Power Plant to check on things there, as well as polling places. So I want to thank Manley because he's been steadfast with his team answering calls at the wharf. And I want to thank all the other departments in the county that come together and help make this happen because we can't do it alone. And with that, that's all I have.
And a special acknowledgement to the county solicitor's office who helps support our solicitor efforts on election day by bringing a number of members of their team and helping us field calls. So thank you very much, the county solicitors who take their time to do that.
And there are a couple others, right? I mean, the Park Police certainly, and then Mr. Allen, the emergency medical team that comes and helps.
We have emergency services, the Park Police, the Sheriff's Department, the Controller's Office works, really puts its shoulder to the wheel. We're going to have poll worker checks going out at the end of this week.
That's what I was just going to ask you after all the compliments for the poll workers. And obviously what you read was not that they're not all doing it for the money, but they do earn the money.
Yeah, they do.
And so
I
the end of next
believe
week.
that we should process that payroll as quickly as possible.
Great.
It's part of the mutual respect. And but there's so many other departments that contribute workers on election day, from, you know, planning to the copy center and everywhere in between. There are a lot of people who pitch in and help us at the wharf, or shutting down the drop boxes, returning the materials, working here in media with the poll workers returning the materials. We can only do that with the cooperation of the entire county, which is true in every county in Pennsylvania.
That's right. All right. Well, if anybody has any questions for Mr. Allen, otherwise we can move to the certification. How should we present it? And it sounded like you had an amendment, or you need, Mr. Allen, can you present to us the certification of results vote that we need to make?
I would ask for the board to have a motion to certify the results of the May 2025 municipal primary, including the special midterm contests in Pendelco School District, Rose Tree Media School District, William Penn School District Region 3, Chester Township, Rutledge Borough, Colwyn Borough, Eddystone Borough, Media Borough, Prospect Park Borough, Swarthmore Borough, Upland Borough, and Nether Providence Township Ward 3. And additionally, that we certify the cumulation petitions filed by the following individuals for the following offices: Laura Jean Shaw, Democratic Constable, Middletown Township; Jennifer Frazier, Democratic Mayor, Trainer Borough, and Democratic Borough Council Trainer. She will have to decide which of those two she will want, because right now those are in conflict. Richard Williams, Democratic Mayor, Prospect Park Borough; Edward R. Booker, Republican Mayor of Sharon Hill Borough; Amanda Bunn, Democratic Borough Council, Eddystone; Andrew Marquez, Democratic Borough Council in Rutledge; Lauren Silva, Democratic Borough Council in Prospect Park; Charles Schiffer, Republican, Judge of Election, Ridley Park Borough, 4th Precinct; Erica J. Wilson, Democratic, Judge of Election, Sharon Hill, Precinct 2; William T. Bone Jr., Democratic, Judge of Election, Springfield Township, 6-2; Pam Tucker, Republican, Inspector in Chadsford Northeast; Juan Nahara Vasquez, Democratic, Inspector, Concord Township, Precinct 10; Colleen McMahon, Republican, Inspector, Haverford Township, 5-4; Russell Bellotta, Republican, Inspector, Haverford Township, 8-3; Joseph Lockley, Democratic, Inspector, Prospect Park, 3rd Precinct; Suzanne Liotti, Democratic, Inspector, Prospect Park, 5th Precinct; Derek J. Alliston, Upper Chi, Commissioner, Ward 2, Democratic; James E. Plummer, Republican, Upper Darby School Director; Jeff Park, Democratic, Prospect Park Tax Collector; Robert T. Layden Jr., Democratic, Springfield Township Commissioner, Ward 6; Michelle E. Schofield, Upper Darby Township, 612, Judge of Election; Kelly Iyer Faraday, Democratic, Ridley Township, 6-1, Inspector; Gwen Meltzer, Democratic, Ridley Township, 2-2, Judge of Election; Janet Delorio, Democratic, Ridley Township Commissioner, Ward 8; Angela Gilbert, Democratic, Upper Chi Township Tax Collector; Angela Sammons, Democratic, Upper Chi, 5-1, Inspector of Election; Kathleen Yanishak, Democratic, Marple Township Controller.
Okay, do we have is Mr. Parks, is that sufficient?
Yeah, I think it is. And I think that a member of the board could basically say, so moved.
So moved. Second.
Any further comment? Then all those in favor say aye. Aye. None opposed. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Right, Mr. Parks.
Nothing to report other than that we had a relatively quiet election day in terms of fielding calls as the solicitors. I would attribute that, at least in some significant part, to the training that Pam and her team are doing, because in prior years, we have been doing a lot of triage for calls coming to the solicitor's hotline number that are really machine warehouse calls or voter registration calls. And we had a really significant decrease, and have been seeing those go down, but just seemed like a really dropped off a cliff this time around in terms of getting calls to the wrong place. That we then have to take time to reroute. So I think that's a training function. I think that the poll workers are better understanding where to call when they have a problem and assessing What kind of problem is this? And is this really a solicitor problem, or is this a voter registration question, that kind of thing? And that helps because the lines aren't tied up with us trying to redirect calls. We can be there to take a call that it actually is about a solicitor issue. So that was a great improvement. I do think it's directly training related, and kudos to our poll workers for, training takes two. You got the trainer and the trainee, and they both have to be invested. And clearly, I think our group of poll workers are. So that was a great improvement this time around. Again, thanks to the county solicitor's office for pitching in their resources to help our team.
Excellent. All right. Well, there's no rest for the weary. Mr. Allen?
Very quickly, obviously, we begin preparations immediately for the November election, starting with mailing notices to all of the people who I mentioned in the amendment to the motion who filed petitions to accumulate. There were others also who we have certified, but who did not need to file a petition to accumulate because they had enough valid votes for their name as a registered voter. There were some very impressive write-in campaigns. So there are going to be 100 or more individuals who we need to communicate with, and we need to begin organizing the ballot for the fall. In tandem with that, we're going to be beginning the process that we referenced at the January 14 meeting of pursuing the consolidations of the precincts. And I got to tell you, going through those results, going with the return board, some of the precincts that we targeted for consolidation came up in the random selection and had as few as 10 and 14 ballots cast. I mean, there couldn't be clearer evidence of why we have two precincts that are already voting in the same room, need to have one set of equipment, one set of poll workers to reduce the cost and the burden on the county. Because, I've made the reference to Montgomery County having fewer precincts, even though they have 50% more voters. Another one was pointed out to me recently. Delaware County has more precincts than the state of Delaware. I mean, we have, it's a very wasteful process. And it's been talked about, and we're going to rip off that Band-Aid this summer and take care of the lion's share of what we think are the low-hanging fruit, and then also look at a couple of superside precincts and see if we conversely can split those up. That's going to take a lot of work. We've already laid the groundwork with the Department of State. We've already prepared all the verbal descriptions for that. We also experimented, I referenced this during the provisional meeting, with a system of returning the poll pads. We don't want the Joes to have to carry in 2 or 3 poll pads, depending on the size of the precinct, those big green suitcases. So we experimented with Chester City and just having to remove the iPad and return that in the green tote here. So that's much lighter. And the reason we only wanted to experiment with one good-sized community was we didn't want it to go south if it was wrong. It worked out brilliantly. All of the precincts returned them on election night. So this time, this election, we captured off of the poll pads from the ones we got from Chester City, but then the ones that Jackie's team rounded up at the warehouse as the cages came back and hustled down here. And then Crystal's team helped upload the voter history. We had all the voter history done by the Friday after Election Day. And by taking this experimental system, which Rob came up with, by the way, I know we were debating at the last meeting. It was Rob Wright's idea. Rob is a source of many great ideas. We're going to take this to all of the precincts in the fall, which will allow us to have voter history the Wednesday after Election Day.
Awesome.
So before Crystal's team even has to, is still sorting through the provisional ballots, we're going to have the ability to get the voter history uploaded and uploaded to the Shore system. This is something that with the paper poll books would have been impossible, just impossible unless you had a team of 100 individuals scanning those books all night long on election night and into Wednesday. So those are some of the projects that we're working on for the fall election to make it even better than the time before. I do want to add one note, though, of caution to, or advice to all of the candidates, all of the campaigns, and political parties, what have you. We did see something kind of disturbing because in a 16% turnout election, these are your most diehard regular voters typically who show up. And the return board can attest to this. We saw on a number of contests, didn't matter if they were Democratic ballots or Republican ballots, in the vote for 2, vote for 3, vote for 4 contests, only one selection made. And it's one thing that, you know, to see it once in a while because maybe that voter only likes one person of those 4 candidates listed. It's another thing to see it across the entire ballot. So they did the same thing on county or on county council. They did the same thing on their borough or township council. Then they did the same thing in their school district. And I'm a person who doesn't believe in coincidences. And so I just want to offer that advice to the candidates and the political parties who are going to be running in, especially in contests where it's vote for 2, vote for 3, vote for 4, get the word out and help inform the voters because, you know, that's going to be one area where, you know, it's going to take more than just the election board printing on the ballot, vote for not more than 3. So that's it.
All right. And then for the minutes, we're going to review 2 sets of minutes that were taken from meetings before Mr. McMeekin joined the board. Both Mr. Alberts and I have reviewed them. I did make one edit to one of them that I understand you've incorporated. Would you just please tell us the dates of the minutes that we're going to vote to approve? Or
The dates of the minutes, the meetings rather, for the minutes for your approval are October 22nd, 2024 and November 25th, 2024.
there a motion to approve those 2 minutes?
So moved.
I'll second it. And just for the purposes of the public, Mr. McMeekin, as he was not present during those meetings, will abstain. Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. And that motion passes with Mr. McMeekin noted as abstaining. And then we have some more minutes that we'll present at the next meeting to catch us up. All right. What's the next meeting date?
We do not have one at this time. I do not anticipate that we will need a board meeting at the end of June. So it will be at the call of the chair.
Okay. And Mr. Parks, are we going to have additional sort of board meetings related to the consolidations that won't be on the regularly scheduled calendar, or will we be able to do them with the regular calendar?
I don't think we will need them. The consolidations that Mr. Allen mentioned were already the subject of board meetings and votes by the board. So we were simply going to be, carrying that ball forward. He did mention potentially splitting supersized precincts. That would be new matter, and that would be for the board. So I don't think, at least with respect to the consolidation piece of this puzzle, that will be necessary. But the supersizing, splitting supersized precincts piece might be something that we have to consider, and that's going to depend on whether Mr. Allen and his team identify candidates for that that need to be dealt with this summer.
Otherwise, at the meetings, you'll update us on the progress of the consolidation.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, the legal pleadings, they're essentially templated legal pleadings, and they're ready to go. We simply have to marry the written description piece that Jim mentioned is now complete with the sort of templated legal pleadings that we've already prepared, and reproduce that across the different, with the different details in each template. But the template is done, and we're standing ready to proceed. And we just wanted to get this primary behind us and the certification of it behind us before we turn to that.
Before we have a motion to adjourn, I would like the board members to sign the certification documents while we're in open session.
Sure, and did I wanted to see if they had anything they wanted to add.
I just had one, I guess walk me through it here. My understanding of the process was after we did the legal pleadings and submission, I thought there was a final opportunity for public comment and hearing.
There
This body?
will be. There are a series of hearings. There's essentially a preliminary hearing in the court. Then there's a follow-up hearing with the board. Then there's a final hearing with the court is the basic sort of I would say two-step, but it's actually a three-step that happens with the sequence of hearings on these issues. 2 court hearings with a public hearing in between.
Okay, so then that will hopefully fall on our regular calendar.
Correct. I don't,
Thank you, thank you.
I would imagine that we can probably time it so that it's just lined up with a regular.
And then as a formality, I mean, when we voted to initiate the process, but I believe we take final action after those hearings.
Yes, I think that's correct. Although ultimately, I think what happens is the court approves it and then it just comes back to the board to sort of adopt.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. McMeekin, do you have any questions?
I do not.
All right. Can you hold your question? We can answer it after we go in session. Let's sign then the certification, please, Mr. Allen. Yeah, after we. There's no more public comment. Oh. Wait, let me do this one and then I'll do it. The Democrats will be signing in blue.
You do that. Still be symbolic.
Still sign
All right. All right.
Because I forgot my pen, but my pen is normally blue anyway.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So
Seconded.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye, thank you. Ms. Coker, if you have any questions, is it for the board or is it for Mr. Allen?
No, I was wondering, will there be a public notice of when these things go into? Okay,
absolutely.
okay, where would that be?
Publish legal